you so much. Like he mentioned, I am Zambian by birth, so all the Zambians in the house say woo. I grew up in KZN, South Africa, so all the KZNers. And wow, that's the rowdy bunch. And I am Zimbo by calling. My husband and I met while I was studying at UKZN, like he mentioned. And one of the first things he said to me when he finally crawled out of the friend zone is, he said to me, listen, maybe to scare me just a little bit, he said to me, listen, I've actually been called to plant a church in Zimbabwe. So if you say yes to dating me, just know that you have to be prepared for a future in Zim. And clearly, like every young man, he underestimated the determination of a young lady in love, because all I heard was, if you date me, you have to be prepared for a future. But in 2019, we packed up our bags and we moved over to Zim. And in the last 6 years I've been in Zimbabwe, I've heard a lot of prophetic words spoken over our nation. And if you do know or if you don't know, Zim has been going through a very tough season for the last 40 years, both financially and politically. And most of the words that are spoken over Zim are very positive words. Most of the people that come through say there's a new season. We see a breakthrough. We see this time ending. We see it coming. You guys are stepping into something else. And most of the words are incredible like that, and we love those words. But I had an amazing God moment last year when at our equip, we are sitting down like this, and one of the guys gets up and he starts to speak to us, and he says this statement. He says, Mazimbabwe. You have to imagine it in a Zim accent. It hits better. He says, Mazimbabwe, it might not get better. And there was silence in the room. You could hear a pin drop in the room. But there was beauty in that message. The beauty in that message is that it not only pointed us towards Jesus, but also there was an incredible realness in that message. The realness in this room this morning is that many of us are going back to situations that are going to make you doubt every single message that encouraged you this morning. During this equip, every single message. And we will go back to doing life in very shaking situations. And I'm here to encourage you that we cannot forget that there is purpose in our shaking situations. There is purpose, and the purpose is to lift our gaze towards the King and his kingdom. I want to read Jeremiah 29, verse 4. I'm so glad that I wasn't a speaker in the 60s. I can't imagine having to wait for everyone to flip through their Bibles. You guys are already there. Jeremiah 29, verse 4. It says this. It says, "This is what the Lord Almighty, the God of Israel, says to all those that are carried into exile from Jerusalem to Babylon. Build houses and settle down. Plant gardens and eat what they produce. Marry and have sons and daughters. Find wives for your sons and daughters, and give your daughters in marriage, so that they too may have sons and daughters. Increase in number there. Do not decrease." Most of us know this verse because of what it says in verse 11. But before verse 11 happens, there's all of this. There's God's people who've been led into exile. And I can imagine they're being led into this season, and they're looking up to God and expecting the Lord to say, I'm going to release you from this time. I've got a plan. I've got the power. I'm going to save you from this. And instead, the Lord says, no, I carried you into this season. And I didn't just carry you into this season, but my plan for you in this season is that you do the things that keep you permanently in this season. Build houses in this season. And not just stay permanently in this season, but I also want you to be fruitful in this season. You are going to increase. You are going to multiply. The shaking is not accidental. Even in nature, the purpose of an earthquake is that when it comes through, when it shakes the earth, it forms mountains and valleys, and new land develops over time. Even in nature, if there were no earthquakes, the earth would be geologically stuck. In the hard places of our lives, while in exile, While in the space that's difficult, in the space where you're feeling exhausted and overwhelmed and depressed and stressed out and stretched out of your comfort zone and alone and shaken, God is saying, do not decrease in that space. Do not be stuck in that space. Multiply there. I don't know about you, but I spend way too much time trying to pray away the things that the Lord has purposed over my life, instead of just taking up the right posture and planting gardens. I clocked 30 about 2 years ago, and it's like the gardening app loaded inside my brain. It's like, doo-doo, you will now learn how to propagate. But But we moved into this new house, and this new house was a dust bowl. And I remember working that garden, and I put effort and time, and I woke up early. And every mom in this room knows that if you're waking up early, like you're spending that time, doing things that matter. So I would wake up in the morning, and I would spend time in this garden. And finally, it got to a place where it felt like I could actually enjoy it. I could spend a little bit of time there. And then my husband got a message, and our landlord said, I've actually sold this house. You need to move. I was like, Lord. And one day, I was busy watering the garden, and I remember thinking, what am I doing? What's the point? And I dropped the hose, and I felt the Lord say, no, go back and water the garden, because you're not watering this for yourself. I'm not calling you to water this garden for yourself. I am a generational God. I don't work in the now. And sometimes, as believers, our faithfulness in the hard plants gardens for generations to enjoy. It's on the backdrop of this moment where the Israelites are in a tough space, where he's telling them, stay in here, stay in this exile, don't move, be permanent here, that he actually drops Jeremiah 29, verse 11. And most of us know this verse. He says to them, while you are in this exile, know that I have a plan for you. And it's not just a plan, it is a good plan. We drove to Durban this weekend, and while coming back on the N3, everybody knows who's driven that road. There is chaos and rubble and building and stuff everywhere. And it was pouring rain. By the way, South Africans, what's with the weather? It's summer everywhere else in Africa. What is with the cold? But it was pouring. And there was mist, and it was horrible. There was rubble on this side, rubble on that side. But in the middle of all the chaos were all these little arrows that were aligned on the side, that were giving you direction, that were showing us where to go. My word this morning is that there are people here who are in a season where it feels like your arrow has flipped, and you're looking at the rubble. You're facing the direction of the rubble. You're facing the direction of the heart and of the exile. And it has become overwhelming, and it has become difficult. And the Lord is saying, fix that arrow and point towards the King and his kingdom. Thank you.